when my soul left my body, I was kind of in a state of shock at how quickly my soul left my body. It was like a speed and velocity I can't even describe. It was surreal. And then the clairaudient and clairsentient communication was profound. And interestingly, as a medium, those are my strongest of the clairs. And how spirit predominantly communicates to me until lately.
Welcome to the Angelic Frequency Podcast. We are your hosts, Christina Aroche
and Luisa Velez, and today we had a great conversation with Amy Marohn. She's a spiritual hypnotherapist, medium, and metaphysical healer. We had a great conversation. We covered a lot of ground, from her NDE experience all the way through her new book, Whispers Beyond the Veil. So super interesting conversation. Let's dive in.
Hi, welcome, Amy. We're so excited to have you joining us today. Thank you for coming in, and I'm excited for this conversation today.
Thank you, ladies. It's so great to be here.
Yeah, we were just chatting about how the divine timing and everything that led to this conversation today. So we're so excited to have you here. So first of all, welcome. We always like to begin with our guest story, essentially. So if you can take us back to your, actually, we know about your near-death experience and how important that was in your spiritual journey. So if you can take us back then and how that became sort of the catalyst for everything that you're doing today with sensorium hypnosis.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. So for listeners and viewers, I'll just give a little backstory leading up to the near-death experience. I was working in a corporate position. I was a rehab consultant working in a pain management program. I had been experiencing what I then referred to as mystery illness, flu-like symptoms, fevers, chronic fatigue, chronic pain. And it took about 5 years to find a doctor who understood these symptoms and was able to slap a name to this. It was an autoimmune condition called, it's a mouthful, ME for short, myalgic encephalomyelitis, essentially a neuromuscular condition that creates what's called post-exertional malaise. Well, through this battle with chronic illness, my immune system just wasn't performing at a level it needed to in order for me to function at my optimal level. And in fact, even after finding a doctor in Michigan, now I'm in Seattle, and 10 months of traveling back and forth to try his treatment protocol, nothing we were using was actually working for me. And as some people may read from my profile, I had missed the optimal window of time whereby this protocol may have helped or reversed my condition. And so at the 10-month mark of traveling back and forth to Michigan, I thanked the doctor profusely for putting a name to this condition, but just told him, this isn't working. I need to just hang it up. So I flew back home. At this point, it was time to let go of my corporate position. I was getting sicker and sicker. I was going through a divorce. I had just bought a new house. I had a 9-year-old son, all the things. And in a moment of despair and desperation, threw my hands in the air, said, God, either take me or heal me, but don't leave me this way. And within days of that bargaining conversation with divine source, I was home, I was in bed, I was alone, and sometime during my sleep, my soul left my body and I experienced what I refer to as a near-death experience. I'll pause for a moment because my experience, I've talked to many people who have had near-death experiences, and more of the common presentation is a person has, a massive heart attack and experiences near death. Someone's on the surgery table and has an unexpected medical issue or a reaction to anesthesia, and the doctor's clock 7 minutes, the person is clinically dead. In my case, again, many trips to the hospital, even days in the cardiac unit, trying to understand, an autoimmune system and what I now call or know is autonomic or dysautonomia. I'm home. I'm tired of chasing doctors. I'm, tired of enduring this level of pain and physical distress. Soul leaves the body, and I experience this near-death experience clairaudiently and clairsentiently. What I mean by that is I refer to this as the voice. I heard a voice or a thought downloaded that said, Amy, are you ready to leave the earth plane? And before I could respond to that voice, I was downloaded the cumulative emotional impact that my early departure would have on my 9-year-old son. And so all I can say is, the level of grief and despair, confusion, anger, everything you could imagine anyone would endure at the unexpected loss of a loved one, drill down to the emotional body of a 9-year-old child. Wow. And in that moment, I was able to make an informed decision that, hey, can't leave my son. I felt strongly I had a soul contract with him, and this was the validation that I needed. And when I decided I needed to go back and complete my journey on the earth plane, the voice then said, if we send you back, you will live your life more intentionally. So ladies, I had no idea what that meant. And in that moment, I felt my soul reemerge with the physical body. And I'm going to pause because I know that that's a lot. I'm going to pause for a few minutes because what unfolded in the weeks, months, and years to follow is the rest of my story of how I got from where I was in a corporate setting, just working a job, to now working as a spiritual hypnotist in what I refer to as my career calling.
My gosh, that's fascinating. First off, the chills of when you talked about having the emotional download of your own child grieving your loss. Oh my God, that must have been so intense and so powerful. And I wanted to cry as you were telling that story. So I can only imagine what that must have felt like, first of all. That's just fascinating. And I'm so curious how the re-merging of your soul and how that, because I can only imagine like when your soul leaves the body, what a relief or what a sense of freedom or detachment or what that must feel like, and then coming back to the density of the body, that must be hard.
Absolutely. And you're so accurate. When my soul left my body, I was kind of in a state of shock at how quickly my soul left my body. It was like a speed and velocity I can't even describe. It was surreal. And then the clairaudient and clairsentient communication was profound. And interestingly, as a medium, those are my strongest of the clairs. And how spirit predominantly communicates to me until lately. When my soul left my body, I was kind of in a state of shock at how quickly my soul left my body. It was like a speed and velocity I can't even describe. It was surreal. And then the clairaudient and clairsentient communication was profound. And interestingly, as a medium, those are my strongest of the clairs. And how spirit predominantly communicates to me until lately. And we'll dig into that interesting topic. But yes, I absolutely, crossing this barrier or the threshold into, a higher frequency realm where we communicate via mental telepathy and things, we can hear thoughts to be downloaded and feelings, and we can experience past, present, and future simultaneously, which to the human mind is incredible. I mean, it's beyond most of our comprehension. So yes, I mean, the feeling of the absence of physical pain for in however long that encounter, it could have been milliseconds or minutes. It's funny, I've had other podcast hosts say, do you have any sense of how long you were gone or what created that? And I kind of giggled because there's only one cause of death, the heart stops. And I certainly had a lot of autonomic dysregulation leading up to this illness. But the other piece of it is, having such clear communication about, and the question, are you ready to leave? And coming back into my body. Now, many people, or some people, I should say, I know of who have had near-death experiences, have had spontaneous healings. But that was certainly not the case. I feel like I had a soul upgrade, which I've blogged a lot about that topic. But definitely I came back with the same physical challenges and came to understand that that's also part of my soul contract, to kind of try to navigate my journey and call out the wisdom of all of these earthly challenges that many of us are faced with.
Yeah. So interesting. Well, we'll take the soul upgrade any day. That's the one that matters. So
yeah, completely. For the first time in my life, I was able to see myself and my life through a spiritual lens. Following that near-death experience, remembering I had left my mainstream job where I was making a really healthy living, and I had separated, divorce pending. I've got my aging mom who moved out here from New York. I've got a house I just purchased 2 years prior, and my whole life was falling apart, and I didn't have a clue how I was going to support my family. And at that point, realistically, I could stay awake for about 2 hours a day before needing rest. So I was in about the roughest shape ever. So I was walking down the hallway of my home, and again, I hear the voice. This is within days of the near death experience. The voice says, Amy, you're going back to school. Well, I thought that was crazy. I didn't feel good. I had already endured 7 years of college. I needed to figure out how to make a living. And so, but I knew that that voice didn't come from me, because again, there was no way I would have ever entertained that. And then a few days later, the voice came back, same hallway. I tell you, I've got a magical hallway here. And the voice said, "You're going back to school to be a hypnotist." And now I knew that this was the same voice that I heard in my near-death experience, because here's the thing. I had never seen a hypnotist. I had never known a hypnotist. And I can assure you, not even an inkling of curiosity about the field of hypnosis and making the transition from, the field of rehabilitation to hypnosis. The funny thing is, I didn't even question the voice. I found the resources and the time, trusted spirit, and I was enrolled in a certification program within, a short time, maybe a month or two. Finished the program, again, not feeling good. It was challenging, just the part where I needed to stay awake and focused. I got through, put up a website, put out a few ads, and people found me. And this was 10 years ago, 2016. And so here I am 10 years later. Yeah, we can talk a little bit more about mediumship unfoldment and where, because spiritual hypnosis was just really a platform and a launch pad for the things that came to follow.
That's incredible. Wow. There's so much around just your story and how everything unfolded that's just so beautiful and so fascinating. And one of the things that I wanted to mention just from what you were saying before was the fact that you had that free will and you chose to come back too. I think that's so powerful. Just that part. I wanted to comment on that and just say that's so amazing to have that and to have experienced that. And it feels like just even part of your soul's trajectory too, to have chosen that path and then to allow the unfolding to happen from there. It's almost like that domino effect and supported to kind of like kick that off. But I'm curious to hear more about the hypnosis too, because yeah, like I feel like for me, my general concept of hypnosis is like the like typical, like you're getting sleepy, you're getting very sleepy, and you're like, okay, and then it's like, what's happening? Am I having an out of body experience? I'm like, what's happening? So I'm really curious for you to walk us through that process and then kind of how that leads into the work that you do with people.
Sure, absolutely. And I do still think that this modality is the lesser utilized and understood. And truth be told, hypnosis is a very dynamic field. And I have found over the years that many hypnotists layer in other modalities, right? And in the beginning, through our training, a lot of our training is script based, meaning it's kind of the one size fits all approach. Someone, when we think of hypnosis, we think of smoking cessation, and we think of weight loss, and we think of, hypnosis for anxiety and all of those things. And in the beginning, right, I was following this protocol just as I was taught. And about, in a short period of time, I recognized how much the work that I do wasn't fueled by the scripts, it was fueled by spirit and a dialogue with my higher mind, or intuitive mind. So as my clients were sitting in my chair and I'm helping them get into a deeper state, right, which I'll describe as sort of an in-between state. We all go into a natural state of hypnosis throughout the day, where our brain waves slow down and we're in a heightened state of focus. Best example I can give, and probably the most common example, is when you're driving on the highway and you're lost in your thought, maybe thinking about what you're having for dinner, if a past conversation you had with someone, and all of a sudden you think to yourself, oh my gosh, where am I? Did I just pass my exit? You're in a natural state of hypnosis. Or when you're reading a book or you're watching a really engaging movie, you've reached that point of suspension of disbelief where for a moment in time, you are experiencing what that character in the movie is experiencing, fear or sadness. And so there's so much to understand about hypnosis, and there's different kinds of hypnosis. I practice a couple different kinds of hypnosis, but what I can tell you is as I'm guiding my clients into this deeper state, I'm recognizing energies are moving through me, that are also moving through my clients, and higher wisdom from spirit is coming through me again, asking my clients to focus on certain things, or prompting me to ask my client a deeper question, which helps them to resolve a subconscious conflict. Okay, that's what hypnosis is. Whatever tools a hypnotist uses, the ultimate goal is to help a client resolve subconscious conflicts. Those are the things that hover beneath the surface of our awareness that are keeping us stuck in old patterns or unproductive patterns, right? So that we can begin to understand root cause, but even more importantly, we can help our clients begin to piece together the wisdom in that and a formula for life that resonates best with their higher self.
That's so interesting. So essentially, I'm connecting the dots between traditional hypnosis and what spirit communication, and essentially how those two things work together when you're doing these sessions. So essentially, is it would you say is there guides and spirit team and just the person's kind of collective coming in and higher self coming in to help their little human to just connect the dots and do what to do? Okay. That's so interesting.
Yes. Yeah. And Louisa, it really, really is, because it took me from more of a conventional kind of hypnosis, which again is script based. You're trying to lose weight. Here's the protocol and the script that we follow. It's typically, you're walking down a staircase, getting deeper and deeper, and you pass all these different doorways, and the door in each part of that script is helping a client tap into their subconscious mind, but it's a script. And it's so much more intuitive when we're connecting as practitioners with the etheric realm and allowing spirit to bring through the right questions or the metaphors or the guided imagery that the client in the chair is going to connect with. Okay, so it's the greatest cheat in a lot of ways. You're getting help, but the other piece of this is the spiritual coaching piece, where, you know, just through deeper conversation with my clients, I'm helping them understand themes and patterns in their life, karmic debt, intergenerational trauma, lessons and teachings that their soul came here to understand and to climb out of, or extrapolate the higher wisdom so that they can live a more fulfilling life, and they're able to more easily navigate the rough terrain of the earth plane.
I love that. That's so powerful and it's so important. And I really love that, just like how everything kind of combines together and comes together, and the intuitive flow of it, rather than using a script. It's like, no, I'm going to be guided by spirit and see. And
Sure.
it's kind of like it takes away the feeling of I need to figure it out or see which script to use, and instead it's just the divine is guiding and the divine is going to lead them to the highest path. And I love that. So I want to go back to hearing about your story, kind of like, okay, the moment that you, I guess, woke up or came back from that near-death experience, and kind of the unfolding from there, because I'm curious to hear if, and I guess you said, so you registered for the hypnosis certification, you were learning that. Did you find that as you were learning, was that starting to support your healing, or like where does the connection come with your healing? I'm curious to hear more about how you were able to move out of more chronic illness that you were experiencing.
Oh, yeah. It's a great question, Christina. What I have found through my journey is, you know, as we develop a relationship with spirit and spirit team, they are completely invested in each of our own healing journeys. And so this whole journey of developing my skills as a spiritual hypnotist and metaphysical healer, the irony is spirit kept downloading ideas for training and courses and helping me reshape some of the tools that I gleaned from my training into, how can I say it, more soul guided or spirit guided tools. And so I started getting more training and actually went back for a degree in metaphysics. And through metaphysics, I learned what I now refer to as a candle meditation. And the candle meditation is really mystical meditation. And what it does is it helps teach my clients and myself how to drop yourself into a deeper theta state. And I was using these tools on myself. And what I recognized is through this candle meditation, I was able to begin to deactivate my primitive mind. Okay, that's the part of our mind that keeps us in fight or flight, that is very resistant to change, the part of us that pushes us so hard and disconnects from the higher mind. And also at the same time activate the higher mind. That's the intuitively wise part of us. I mean, exists within each and every one of us, connected to the higher realms, so that I could listen to my own soul's wisdom, and that I could more easily channel the wisdom brought through from the etheric realm. So I started practicing this candle meditation, which, by the way, I'll send you the link. I have a free link on YouTube to this candle meditation. It's about 18 minutes long, a little tutorial. So that's one of the tools. And through that tool, I reprogrammed my mind and my body to recalibrate to the frequency of complete emotional quietude. It was pretty amazing. I also, through this tool, Spirit guided me through a process of being able to release the thoughts and behaviors that no longer served me. And again, it's in my book, which I'll share a little bit more, it really is another great tool for sitting in the power. The advanced practice of this tool helps us be able to connect with the etheric realm, where they can bring through, pieces of wisdom to help us in our journey. It's so effective. And so, that was one tool. Then Spirit guided me to take some training, even though I felt I didn't know it at the time. I was practicing trance healing. Spirit guided me to take more training and more classes so I would have a greater framework for understanding how energies work. And then I designed another tool, an interactive tool, to put my clients through that would help them strengthen their mind-body connection and release trauma from the deepest cellular level of their body. So as you can see with my training, I'm experiencing these tools firsthand. I'm piloting each one of them, and I begin to integrate them into my practice. And I'll pause for a minute because I did layer in a few more tools that I can talk about that were extraordinarily helpful to me. And so what happened is, and I talked to a lot of my clients who have chronic pain, autoimmune disease, any kind of debilitating condition, or even a condition that's cyclical, right, where you feel an uptick in symptoms. I believe a lot of the tools that I teach and I utilize turn down the volume on these physical symptoms. And so for me, when I started to step away from this obsessive need that I had to try to cure my condition, and I started to understand how emotional chaos and intergenerational trauma and karmic patterns really interfered with my immune system's ability to function at its optimal level. Then I began to layer in or experiment with these tools that would very effectively turn down the level, or turn down the volume to a level where I could be productive, move through my day, be able to manage this condition with much greater confidence and calmness.
That's fascinating. And I think a lot of our listeners will relate to this notion of when you're a healer, you're a light worker, you're psychic, intuitive, whatever you want to call it, and whatever your practice is, the more you start to explore your own abilities, and the more tools you acquire in your toolkit, and then in
Yeah.
applying them to yourself is when you're, oh, this is how this can be helpful for other people, and how I can show up. The more that you trust your own intuition and your inner guidance and learn to listen to spirit, that's so important. And I think this is somewhat of a theme that comes up in the podcast, and how hard it is for people to trust divine guidance. Is like, is this myself? Is this ego?
Yeah.
Am I talking to myself? Is this just a
Mm.
random thought? Like, trusting and learning how to listen to spirit and to discern what that voice is, what it looks like for you. It's so important. And only in experiencing the tools and doing the work yourself is that you can hope to get better and hopefully help people down the line. So that's just interesting to hear how your trajectory was so similar, and in healing yourself you were able to heal others.
Absolutely. And even in this journey as a medium, again, then after realizing these mediumship gifts, which by the way we all have, is again taking more classes, getting training, really understanding. I mean, everything came, all the classes and training came after the fact, just because I wanted to be around a group of people who were on a similar journey. I wanted to work with the best mentors I could find in all of these tools that Spirit was placing before me, just kind of randomly. And, I think our greatest, people have said, gosh, Amy, you've had such, I mean, that wasn't the end of my medical storms. Just last year, I had a major surgery. I had been diagnosed with a very rare digestive disorder that was cutting off blood supply to my digestive organs. And I'm like, and it was another long journey of trying to figure out, why am I not digesting food and all the things, and spending a week in a trauma hospital, having open surgery. And I'm still honestly, Spirit's walking me through each day of this, because that has been almost just as difficult a climb. But I also think that, we're faced with these deep challenges because, it creates many more layers of wisdom for us to be even more useful, to our respective communities we're called to help. What I came to realize through my medical storms, and even storms in my personal life that took an emotional toll on me, is, and I think this really highlights the difference between spiritual hypnosis and mainstream hypnosis, is that, number one, I believe the most powerful healer of all is each one of us. And so my job is really to help my clients ignite their own inner healer. Okay. Number two, I believe the answers lie within. Okay. So instead of you coming to me with a conundrum or a list of things you want to work on or positive outcomes you want to manifest, I tell my clients, look, the answers lie within you. My job is to help my clients dust off their soul, to discover who are you beneath the trauma, and dust off their wings, because I would say the majority of people who seek me out are light workers in their own right. And then the other piece is, in hypnosis, we help people tap into the subconscious mind to understand root causes. But one thing I want to make abundantly clear is, inside of us are also the solutions. And so through this intuitive work that I do, I'm helping my clients piece together a formula for their life that resonates best with the most authentic version of themselves. Okay, so it's not the world according to Amy. It's less about what I'm doing to you or for you. This is more about what I'm empowering you to do for yourself.
That's so beautiful and so inspiring. I love that so much. And even just hearing you say that, I'm like, yes, like that's so needed. And just feeling that
Right.
that like awakening,
Mhm.
it just feels like an awakening, even by you saying that, like something gets awakened within each
Yeah.
of us. And I can only imagine, clients sitting with you and kind of guiding them through that, and something starts to be drawn out from within them, and then they can start to recognize it for themselves. That's so amazing and so powerful. And so I want to kind of pivot a little bit and hear more about your book, because that's another inspirational tool that you have brought
Yeah.
through your work, through the service that you're bringing into the world to support and guide other people. Your book is called Whispers Beyond the Veil, Channel Teachings Inspired by the Spirit World. So can you tell us a little bit more about what led you to writing the book, and kind of your process around
Yeah.
the creation of that book, and what people can learn from reading
Yep.
your book?
Yeah. Well, and thank you. This is really a crazy story. That when you start to really understand the deep connections we have with the spirit world. So back in the spring of this year, I went to a mediumship conference for intensive training with three medium, one psychic medium. And probably, I don't know how many people were there, probably 50 students, if I had to guess, maybe 40. But there was a nice number of us. And it was, very intense. I mean, I found that a lot of mediums, advanced mediums from the UK really take their training and their work seriously. They really set the bar high, which I love. But I was in classes pretty much all day, every day, and then, socializing with people at night. And one day I exchanged trance healing sessions with this beautiful lady um, from Philadelphia, but who had recently moved to Florida. And something happened in that trance mediumship exchange to me that I can barely find the words to describe. I mean, my entire body lit up like a Christmas tree. I felt like my something was released. I was recalibrating. I mean, it was just and again, reminding listeners and viewers, she wasn't a trainer. She's just a very gifted medium embedded in this workshop who I had never met before. And it was very emotional. We were hugging afterwards. I left that class and that program, didn't really think much of it. Well, I get home on a Sunday night, and Sunday at 2 in the morning, I'm awakened. I mean, wide awake. I don't know what exactly woke me up, but I knew that I was supposed to get up and go to my meditation room or hypnosis room and listen. And a voice came through and just started. The voice of this spirit introduced herself by name. And I was a little taken aback and kind of blown away, because prior to this conference, I had never heard of this woman before. Turns out she's a medium who passed away within the last decade. And the conference was the first time I had heard her name. And it just so happened that the person who had done the trance healing on me had been studying her work for 3 years. And
Wow.
again, very science fiction. I'm listening, I'm just listening to what she's sharing with me, these pieces of wisdom. And this conversation kept going every morning for weeks on end. And a day or two into these downloads and conversations, I thought I better go to my computer and try to capture what this beautiful soul is downloading, because it's too good not to share. And so I would sit at my computer, even after an hour's worth of download, thinking, how am I going to capture this? And what I can tell you is her spirit absolutely, without a doubt, merged with mine and took over my hands and the keyboard in a process called automatic writing. And it was the most incredible experience of my career. And so I started to recognize, like, wow, these are thoughts and ideas that have a theme, and the themes turned into chapters. And 5 or 6 chapters in, I remember asking her, how am I going to know when this is done? And she said, you'll know. And so naturally, I reach out to the woman who did the trance healing, and I said, you're not going to believe this. You might think I'm crazy, but is there any way you would read the first couple chapters of my book and tell me if I'm off my rocker? And she's like, oh my gosh, Amy, I would be so honored. So I sent her the first 2 chapters, and she said, oh my gosh, this is just like the spirit of this medium that I've been studying. And then we had another, she said, it's incredible, keep going. Well, what's interesting is that in each chapter, there are journal prompts. So I came to realize, oh my goodness, she's downloading a spiritual curriculum for people to connect with the most authentic versions of themselves, but also to develop a relationship with spirit. So one day in a conversation with this same medium friend, I said, I'm realizing this is a spiritual curriculum. And there was a silence on the phone, and my friend said, Amy, before this woman passed, she and one of her students were trying to put together some sort of more formal curriculum, and it never got done. And so just incredible. So I mean, the crazy thing is I really didn't need to do a lot of editing. I changed a little bit the juxtaposition of the chapters to create a better flow. But as my friends, a few of my close friends were reading it, I told them, I can't wait to read it. Because again, through automatic writing, she's doing the writing. I'm like, I got to go back and start reading what I've written more closely. And I will say, there were times I was weeping while I was reading what she brought through, because it was so incredibly poignant to my life and my journey. And some of the chapters, the downloads, were incredibly timely with some things I was navigating, even in my, either through my business or in my personal life, or even poignant to some of the clients I was seeing at the time.
So interesting. Again, is the synchronicities and how the universe will do that for you. And again, in healing yourself and in working through your own things, you're bringing through something that's going to help so many others out there.
Mm-hmm.
And your experience, and I can only relate so much to that experience, but just channeling and channel writing and the catching up with the download later, and it's like, what is this that came through? That is just hilarious, and
Yeah.
I can kind of relate to that. So it's just funny to me to see the similarities there. That's so incredibly interesting. So essentially, this is just a channeled download and a beautiful curriculum.
Oh, well, thank you. I'll hold up. This is my draft. But this is what the book looks like. And if anyone is interested in doing a deeper dive and really working on those journal prompts, I developed a companion journal, The Whispers Within, a journal for personal reflection, and spiritual workshop facilitators. So people can reach out to me if they're, um, workshop facilitators, or they're interested in growing their spiritual communities, because they can get a license to be able to use this book to teach their classes or expand on their current curriculum, or they can just utilize it as part of their own personal healing journey. That's perfectly wonderful too. And people can find that on Amazon. They can also find it on my website.
That's amazing. We'll definitely take a peek, and we'll definitely include all of those links for our listeners, who I'm sure are going to be curious. I wanted to ask you something. So, in going back to the hypnosis of it all, and just because I'm sure throughout the years and over a decade of work in hypnosis with spiritual practitioners and healers, especially, are there any themes or modalities that have come through for those people that have you noticed that, okay, so past life regression is just a big thing, or like what are the things that are coming up more during the sessions?
That's really interesting. Well, I feel like every season brings through a little bit different kind of client. What I have noticed since the pandemic, light workers are really coming out of the closet. People are, that whole time period was a period of deep self-reflection, core values clarification. People started to wonder, like, what would it be like for me to open my own business? I'm a little bit tired of the grind. And so what I started realizing, especially during the pandemic, is I was seeing I've always worked a lot with people, even in Western medicine, and also alternative medicine, naturopaths, chiropractors, physical therapists, massage therapists. But I started seeing more and more nurses, and the nurses understandably were exhausted and burned out and disillusioned by, just having to navigate one of the most exhausting time periods in our history for people, first responders, and people in the medical field. And many of them are like, Amy, I'm not ready to retire, but what's next? And so, yes, over the years, I've always seen people for grief and loss. I've always seen people for, anxiety and relationship issues and all the things. But post pandemic, that period of time really was a time of great spiritual awakening for a lot of people in the medical field and even across multiple industries, who are coming to me saying, I'm burned out. I'm not happy. What's next, Amy? I want to heal some things from my past, right? I want to do some deeper spiritual healing work, but I also want to know, like, what's next. And so what was born from that is workshops. I started hosting these small group workshops out of my home on various spiritual topics. And because I started to recognize, yeah, there are themes. People feel isolated. People have a lot of superficial relationships. They do business networking. They go to work meetings. They might have a handful of, friends from work or friends they grew up with. But a lot of people are coming to me saying, where do I meet other spiritually inclined people? Where do I meet other seekers? And where can I go? Are there any groups at all where we can talk about past lives and connection to spirit and, meditation tools and, astral projection and all of these spiritual things? And I thought, oh my gosh, I had done workshops out in the community, but what if I did more of a homespun group and kind of selected some people who I thought would really enjoy getting to know each other? And these groups have grown. And so, right now I do two different groups. One is more on mediumship and sitting circles, but the other is now we're actually going through my book, using it as a spiritual curriculum. Every once a month on Mondays, the third Monday of the month, we get together and people bring their journals and share their responses and insights to different topics in the book. So it's kind of taken the form of a spiritual book club. So that's the tool. And lots of friendships are growing from that. So I have just loved this season of my work, in that my clients have helped me evolve as a practitioner, and they help determine for me what they needed in order to evolve. So I hope that answers your question. So I'm not just doing chair work, and which I do, I do virtual work with people around the world and in person here in the greater Seattle area. But now I've got these in-person small groups, and I mean small. I mean no more than 7 or 8 people, because I want to make sure everybody has a chance to share. And I want to keep these groups really intimate. And I feel like people really enjoy them, and I absolutely love them. They're great.
It's so interesting because Louise and I recently had a conversation about community, about bringing people together, about how so important it is during this time right now, that as light workers and healers and people on the spiritual awakening journey, that we come together, that we find our soul families, that we, find the people around us. Not just, online is amazing and fantastic, and so grateful for the internet and all the things, but also that in-person connection. Like, there's nothing like it. And so that's really cool to hear that you're cultivating that. And that would be amazing. Any listeners who are in the greater Seattle area, definitely go and connect with Amy. That's so wonderful. I love that so much.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So great.
Well, well, thank you. The other piece, Christina and Louisa, I wanted to share is that I know a lot of sole proprietors, light workers, working across, again, energy healers, massage therapists, hypnotherapists. We're amidst a very challenging economic time right now. There's a lot of things going on in the political landscape that are creating a lot of challenges for, small businesses. And so what's very fascinating about this medium I channeled, who helped me write this book, is that her greater vision for me is kind of a pay it forward model. It's like, Amy, what if you could take this book and share it with other light workers who could then build programming around it? And she said, she planted the seed in my mind to open a second company I'm just on the cusp of doing. It's called Sensorium Press. Sensorium Press is the company I used to publish this book. But the greater vision of Sensorium Press is that people can use this Sensorium Press website as a platform for sharing their workshops, for sharing their books, and for sharing their stories about, the greater work that they're doing. And I'm hoping that it will be a clearinghouse of information for people around the world to connect with wonderful people like you ladies who are, divinely motivated to infuse more light and goodness into the world. And that eventually I'll be more in a support role for, the younger generation of light workers and helping them build their empires and their communities and share some of their great gifts. So that's part 2 of sensorium hypnosis. But in the meanwhile, people can reach out to me, if they're interested in, getting a license to teach from this book, because again, I was thinking of, yes, primarily bringing together your community in person if you can, or online, right? Some people have more of a community online, and that's wonderful too. But the other thing is, to be totally transparent, for light workers to have, income streams, smaller income streams, as we're all together moving through this challenging time in our political economic system. And I love that. That feels like a very light worker thing to do, is to empower other light workers to have something to teach from while they're busy creating their next work of art, because we're all in different parts of our unfoldment and our development as helper healers. And so anyway, so that was the side mission of this medium, I believe, in downloading this book.
That's so beautiful, and definitely resonates a lot with us, as Christina was sharing. And in the latest interviews and podcast recordings we've done, community, it's kind of what's coming up and what's been coming forward for us as well. And is how do we create spaces for community for all of us together, and to normalize these conversations, for us to have a safe space for people to just to talk about these things. And where can you go to talk about your weird experience you had during that meditation you did, or just to have a safe space to connect with other people that are into kind of this weird space, and how lovely is it, and just to create safe spaces and conversation spaces for people like us. It's invaluable, and I think it's more needed now more than ever, virtually or in person. Of course, the power of in-person connection is just amazing, but however we can do that, I think that's one of the callings of the times, is just get together and gather and just talk. And there's book clubs, and there's sports clubs, and there's all sorts of clubs, but where are the light worker clubs, and the angelic clubs, and the divine feminine clubs? So just starting to create those in our communities. It's really we're being called to do that, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. It's so fun. And again, we don't have to, what I found with my client base, which it's mostly women of all different ages, from 20s all the way up to their 70s and 80s. And it's so cool to get them all together, because they all have such a unique perspective and so much to share with each other. But, anything that we can do as practitioners to personalize the experience for people. I always have snacks and water. Sometimes I do this event called Soup and Spirit, where I make a couple different kinds of soups, and I put together some desserts, and we sit together as extended lightworker family. Right at the counter I'm sitting at, I have a table over there, and it's just women eating together, visiting, talking. I usually have a funny theme that's metaphysically related. And then when we're done eating, we just sit in the back. We talk about a topic, we share. We have a few a certain protocol that we follow, but it's so casual. People kick off their shoes. I have blankets. We have lots of candles, and we laugh and we cry and we hug. And it's just, I just have found that, especially with the kind of clients that I'm working with, we're all this is a relationship business. And people want to feel seen, and they want to feel heard, and they want to feel loved, and they want other people to notice, like when they're missing from a group, or they want to have somebody in a group to call if life feels heavy. And that's the role that we play. I think part of my role in this season is connecting really beautiful people together, so the walk is less lonely, and they have deeper soul connections and deeper friendships with people. So I love it. I mean, my work and my role in this company, just every season it gets better and better, more and more interesting, and brings me just the most incredible helper healers in their own right. So I feel very blessed and grateful to have this journey.
That's so, so beautiful and so incredible. And just hearing you talking about that, I'm like, I want to go to that. Like, what's the next flight to see? I don't know. But,
absolutely.
It just sounds so wonderful. And I absolutely, yeah, I absolutely agree with how important it is to make people feel seen, loved, heard, like belonging, all of that is so powerful. And so I just want to say thank you for coming back and saying yes to this path, and that all the way back from your NDE experience of just how this trajectory has unfolded for you, and now you're here and providing such beautiful service to light workers and people who are awakening as well. So I just want to say thank you so much for that. And on that note, would also love to invite you to share with our listeners where they can connect with you and learn more about you. We'll definitely put all the links to everything in the show notes, but if you want to mention quickly, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you and stay connected?
Sure. Well, probably to go to my website, sensoriumhypnosis.com. It's SENSORIUM. And sensorium simply means senses. Sensoriumhypnosis.com. There you can find a link to my book. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, it will link you to all my social media accounts. I am an very passionate spiritual blog writer. You'll see that under resources, all kinds of videos and materials there. So I would say that's probably the easiest, best way for people to reach me.
Thank you so much. It's been such a lovely conversation, and we covered, I think, things that I didn't think we were going to cover. So that's also lovely. And just to end on a note of community feels very, very, very good. So thank you so much, Amy, for your time, for being here with us. And see you next time.
Thank you so much, ladies. Bye.